of human highs and lows, an integral perspective and approach. Before we start the session, we'll just step back for a few moments of silence. So greetings. Now the speaker tonight is someone we work and collaborate with very closely. She's a seeker working towards the perennial wisdom of self-knowledge to the field of psychology and developing ways that can facilitate an integral approach towards life. Conscious living is a full-time job, is her living aspiration. Currently, she teaches integral yoga psychology at university level and also conducts online sessions focused on a dialogue-based inquiry and self-exploration. Now, the subject of her presentation tonight is Purifying Lower in Light of Higher. So very much looking forward to the session, and over to you, Aditi.
Namaste everyone. Thank you, James, for the introduction. And every time I come for a session online, I try to pick something new from whenever you describe that little introduction. And I try to see if I can just bring some sort of, because it's a window to yourself, no? Because when somebody else is talking about you, we try to see that if somebody is telling, say, 10 sentences about you, which one do you pick and which stays with you? It tells you what you think of yourself. So this is just one example of how everything can become an exercise for a window to go within and see that what is my psychological framework, what is my inner state of being, and what are the ways through which I look for some sort of identification. So it just struck me. So I thought I'll just share with the group. And this is how, say, sometimes somebody says something about you, you feel good about it. Sometimes somebody says something about you, you feel bad about it. So these are the kind of fluctuations which I think this is the thing which you're dealing in the whole week. Different speakers have come and shown you that how we deal with the highs and lows, what are the ways to overcome it. Essentially, what happens is we often talk a lot about how to overcome a weakness. And also because that is one of the ways to progress. We are all looking for a progress. We're all looking to become better human beings. So the more we speak about becoming a better version of ourselves, it gives us a lot of hope. It gives us a lot of, it reinstates our faith in the future possibilities. When we look at this process from, say, the lens of integrality, we are not so much focusing on the good part or the bad part. We are focusing on what is beyond, but to reach the beyond, the good and the bad equally plays a part. So at the first go, we are removing the identification of what in me is something which I like, what in me is something which I don't like. My journey is more of becoming aware than of categorizing them as bad or good. So the more I improve my vocabulary of how I'm talking to myself, the more I proceed on overcoming whatever is coming in my way of the ultimate goal which I have in my essence. So I may not have so much of a well-charted path that, okay, this is where I'm going, that's the ultimate. I may have it in the deepest aspect of my being that, yes, there's something which I'm aspiring for. There's something which I'm hoping for, and I will reach there, and I am reaching there. So there's a certain sense of certitude. There's a certain sense of patience in a way which is much more dependent on faith than anything else. But in that process of unfolding, end of the day, we have to deal with our nature. But how am I dealing with my nature determines the experience of my journey. So my contribution to understanding my nature, dealing with it, and making more of as a collaborative process. So when I'm really looking at, say, we're dealing with highs and lows, these are movements of my nature. And all of us know that movement is required for a sense of existence. I exist, so I move, so I exist. That is a sense which we get in terms of not just human beings, anything. Like the fundamental difference between something which has life, something which doesn't have life, is the ability to move. Now, that ability to move can be at a physical level, if I'm able to move from one place to another. It can be at a vital level that I've experienced all kinds of fluctuations, or it can be also at the mental level when I'm jumping from one thought to another thought. So these movements are just an indicator that there is some sort of life, there's some sort of existence, awareness in my surface nature. So that is the first point which gives us that sense of awareness. But what is that troubles us the most is the vital dissatisfaction or the vital restlessness. That is what most of us identify with, that one time I'm feeling something, the other time I'm feeling another thing. So how do I really create that balance? So whenever we start on that process of really becoming more aware, we start with becoming more aware of fundamentally what it is to be human. And when we attach that sense of that, okay, there's a sense of movement, which is bringing me more awareness about my humanness, how do I make that movement more conscious? So making that movement conscious becomes an unfolding, becomes a process which is more and more active. Now, in that process of making it more and more active is essentially that path of yoga, which all of us in our own capacities and all capabilities walking. Now, when we focus on, say, the emotional turmoil or the emotional up and down, we're basically speaking of that why am I not able to stabilize my experience? So what we are looking for is a stability. Now that stability in the outside can really look like as inaction, but the stability within gives us a sense of expansion. Because if you stop acting on the outside, you will develop certain fear of, say, missing something, or sense of incompleteness, or you want to do something, but you're not able to do something. So restricting or withdrawing our senses before settling within creates another level of disharmony. So the notion, if I'm acting through the mind, that, okay, if I don't need fluctuations, I better not act. Because if I will engage, I will experience highs and lows. So I will not engage. So if I'm operating through the mind, then I'm not giving the other parts of my being the food they require, the nutrition which they require to experience the integral harmony. But if I am really looking for a true stability, that it is not about acting or not acting, it is about acting from that space of stability. So I'm automatically going one step behind, which I'm taking my sense of attention from that outer personality to my inner personality. So I'm catering to the vital dissatisfaction by recognizing its limitations before categorizing them. And when I recognize my limitations, whose help do I need? I need the help of my mental will. So if I'm really wanting to work on my surface, I want its collaboration. I can't reject it to work on it. It is a very fundamental base for all of us in general. So when I am looking for that collaboration, then I'm also looking for what are the good parts in it. So if I am experiencing the bad part of a certain surface nature, I'm also capable of experiencing the good part of that surface nature. So simultaneously becoming aware of what is the part which needs purification in me and what is the part which can help me purify that. So if I'm able to hold both the things together, the actual collaboration for stabilization will happen. And in that process, if I go by, say, just being by being, like in that sense, if we are really talking in the sense of linearity, so if I'm focusing on the thoughts, that my thoughts are jumping so much that I'm not able to focus on one thought, or my thoughts are mostly negative thoughts. I'm always thinking of what can go wrong. I'm not able to concentrate on, say, the right thing for me at the moment or whatever. So at every moment, I was like, this is the possibility, and this is also the possibility. So the freedom of choice which lies in between, that is what we work on so that it naturally gravitates towards what is good. So instead of focusing so much on what to choose, work on the ability to choose. So if I'm working on the ability to choose, if I'm purifying my ability so much in the light of what good I already carry, which I'm aware of, the byproduct of it will be choosing what is right for me at this moment, which is aligning to my journey. So focusing on the process by nature helps us to reach the end goal in a much better manner. So it is really like if I'm really preparing for the exams, like the end term exams, for example, if I'm studying for something, then my unit tests are already taken care of. But if I'm focusing so much on the unit test, then I'm really fragmented in my being. I'm losing that sense of the macro vision which I carry for my learning. So if we really look at life experiences at unit test and really that exam in that sense, not like literal exam, but that sense of divinity of which we are really wanting to experience. So that gives us a wider picture, which gives us the capacity to hold whatever fluctuations which we are experiencing. Because we know that beyond the fluctuations is where my goal lies. And I also have the ability, I also have the strength to move towards it. So this is one way of, like, I was just giving you the example of mind, but especially we deal with the vital domain, that the restlessness in the vital is essentially because we are talking so much about, say, things which are unfinished, things which are incomplete in the way that I want something, I'm not able to get it. So focusing so much not on what I want, but if I will get it, what in me will be satisfied. So it is really like if we are focusing on, say, one way of dealing with this is identifying my triggers. So when I can identify that, okay, this is which really pulls me down. Like if something like this, if one particular person says something, I really go down. Or if there's this particular person I speak to or this place I go to, I'm really at my best. So triggers are also not always negative. Triggers is that something which really excites me in that sense, either in the negative sense or in the positive sense. But if I can focus on not so much of what triggers me, but instead of why that triggers me. Because when we ask why, it takes us within. When we ask us what, it entangles it to the multiplicity of the outer world. So when I go on what, and because what caters to the multiplicity in the world, we'll always be looking for more, more, more. And we know that desire gives way to more desire. I'll never be able to say that, okay, this is it. But if I'm focusing on the why of it, usually it is always that one or two core fundamental unmet needs, which manifest in many scenarios, in many situations, in different ways. So if I shift my focus from the outer what to the inner why, there's a possibility that I recognize a place which goes beyond the highs and lows of my own experience in the outer framework. And that why can lead me to a place which needs healing, which needs attention, which needs support. And when I recognize or reach that point which needs support, I have something or the other in my personality which has that strength to support it. So that support also, again, then I'm not intending to lose myself into the outer personality in the outer world. I'm seeking that support, that something in me is capable to support. So the moment I take away the responsibility from the world to help me heal and put that perspective inside of me, and it's not that we don't need help of the world, but there's one way of seeking help in freedom, and there's another way of seeking help in the type of giving them the responsibility to make everything fine. So there's a subtle difference in the intention through which we are interacting with the world. So the more I become aware of the subtleties of my experience, the subtleties of my intention, the more I will experience the freedom which that action comes in the world. So we often talk about, we have spoken so many times about in different forums about the difference and the coming together of intention and action. But if an intention in that sense is more subtle, more intangible, more inside of us, that governs us, guides us, and action is the outcome of it. But often action is taken as a form, and we forget that form is a means, not the end. And if we remember that form is a means, not an end, we will be able to enjoy the multiplicity and not get entangled in the multiplicity, because form is many in the world. Like this workshop is one form, maybe reading some text about the highs and lows in another form, watching a video is another form, talking to any friend, any person is another form. But in all these engagements of form, if you're aware of why are you doing it and what in you is catered by it, then that is what will take you closer to your goal. So action in itself has no meaning till the time it is aligned with the intent which is purified. So purification of intent is much more a way closer to the divinity within. And as an outcome, the action is automatically purified, because it's like the space which it's coming from determines the quality of it. So that is one way of understanding that shift from the what to the why. Second element of the purification process is if we are more aware of the quality of the highs and lows which we experience, and we try to see the similarities. We often look for, say, that sense of joy or that sense of upliftment, and we are often avoiding that sense of feeling low or all of those things. But if we really just look at that as an experience, we'll see both the qualities. If I'm extremely happy, extremely high, or I'm low, there's one commonality in it, that there's a need to share. If I'm really happy, if I come home, I really want somebody to listen to, or there was such a good thing that happened to me, or there was such a good feeling I had. Or if I'm really, really low, then also I want to share with somebody, like, this is what is happening. I really want to express. Or if I'm really, really feeling that sense of deep disconnect with the world, that the world is against me, I still have that hope. So when there is low, there is hope of better. When there is high, there's fear of it being taken away. So the similarity remains that when we are experiencing a certain poise, a certain way of being, we are already aware of the other possibility, which inherently means that it's a dual experience. And anything which has duality in its experience is not final, because we know that unity is something which is behind, and that is the final ultimate from where this things stem. So the moment we become aware of the duality, the very moment gives us the strength to shift beyond the duality to the unity which we experience, at least we have a sense within. So that is another indicator that keep reminding ourselves that, because all of us do some or the other aspect of self-work, it's just that we often engage more in what needs to be done than with already what has been done. So constantly referring to, constantly carrying the inner work which has already been done to support the future work which needs to be done. So that balance, that awareness of carrying through what you have been going through in that sense and what you have become. Because in that sense, it is a never-ending journey. We'll never be able to say that now I've completely worked on myself, I'm fine. So when we are on that constantly progressive unfolding, it's always important to carry what we have done and let it help us to think for what needs to be done. So this is like that one framework. Now, another indicator from say what to why or attending the qualities is also to understand that once we go to that inner presence, the kind of stability with which we began the session, that stability also helps us to see the reasons for that movement. And often the reason for that movement is that either we want to, like, for example, why do I feel low? So if we really want to bring it to a very concrete everyday example, we're talking about vital restlessness, vital dissatisfaction. We can talk theoretically about like that is the nature of the vital and all of those theory we know. But if I'm really feeling low right now, if I just take that, okay, I wanted something to happen, but it didn't happen. Now that is what is making me feel that, okay, nothing is going my way. I wanted to achieve this. All of those narration is going on in my head. But if I closely examine that narration, it is either I'm wanting to recreate my past experience, that in past I was able to do it, or in the past the situation never occurred, which I had to face, or I'm able to pre-create my future, that what if things would have been better? I would have felt like that. So when in the present moment, I either want to recreate my past experience to feel better, or I want to pre-create the future possibilities, that is when I experience those dualities. But if I develop that capacity, that capability to move beyond or rather behind that recreating or pre-creating, then I'm actually connected to the present moment. And if I'm really, really present in the current movement in that sense that, yes, this is what is happening, there is no duality in the present. The moment I experience the present and move to the future, and that future becomes present, the duality comes in. But if I'm really living moment, I'm always in the present. And when I am in the present and there's no duality, there is no concept of oscillating between highs and lows. So how do I really bring myself to the present, which essentially means pulling myself out of my surface nature and stationing myself into the inner presence? And pulling myself out of the surface nature doesn't mean I will not have the surface nature. It just means that I will not identify with my surface nature. Because experiencing the surface nature is not an error, because that's what is given to us for work. But identifying with the surface nature is an error. So first, I need to identify in that sense that what am I really bringing? So do I have that sense of, say, a transactional element in my exchanges with the world? So whenever there's a transactional element in my exchanges, that is where highs and lows come, no? But some transaction is good, bad, up to my satisfaction, not up to my satisfaction, whatever. So when I can pull myself from that transactional understanding or transactional experience of the world to the transcendental sense that there's much more in vastness, that is when these cease to exist. And when these cease to exist, also my fear goes away. So another reason for this fluctuation is fear, because fear leads to fluctuation and love leads to stability. That is all in our experience. But often our love is infused with fear of losing, fear of not having enough. So we don't experience often love in its totality, because our love is more, it comes more from that vital space and it has the transactional element to it. So any quality, any aspect of our life which has a transactional element will have these fluctuations, because the nature of transaction is give and take, and there is, till the time the transaction is not coming from the deeper space, there will be no harmony or no decisiveness in the sense of how much to give, how much to take. There will be always misalignment, imbalance. So when I'm able to recognize all of these things, and especially recognizing the simultaneity in this movement, that how is my surface really enjoying being a part of the world, or it is really troubled by the world? And it is my duty as that inner sense or inner presence to be to equip my surface to enjoy the interactions with the world, because it has that satisfaction that I'm there. But when will I be able to say that I'm there when I'm not the surface? Like we say, no, it's like desire, distance, and divine. So the more you create distance from desire, the more you're closer to the divine. And how do you create that distance is the working of your mental will, which is helping you to purify your vital. And how do you purify your vital? By not focusing so much on what is its lower elements, but focusing on what are its higher elements. And at every moment, at every step, giving yourself that message that if I have the possibility of opening to say the negative forces or the hostile forces, I also have the possibility to open to the divine forces. So again, coming back to where we began with, that it's the freedom of choice. If I'm focusing on the process, then I'm able to actually cater to, or rather address, the vital restlessness. Because what does, if we talk about right now, say, what does vital restlessness bring? It brings dissatisfaction that, oh, my desires or whatever I intend to cannot happen. What else does it bring? It brings, say, a sense of sorrow, a sense of suffering. And if I'm experiencing a sense of sorrow, a sense of suffering, then I'll be more in that melancholic view of, oh, everything is going wrong, nothing works in me. Or I'm really sensing that, like how in Gita we talk about Arjun's despondency, that nothing is working in my favor. So when we get into that state, there are two options. Like all of us go through it. It's not that we are always in that state of, yes, everything is fine. There are situations because, again, the transactional element comes in. So we experience those things. But when I experience that, at that moment, am I able to give myself that message that there's a possibility that lies beyond my current state of being? And for me to able to realize in that moment will not only give me the freedom to experience the low, but also give me the courage to overcome that. Without experiencing it, if I reject it, and I'm not saying when experiencing means that, oh, being sad all the time, but experiencing it in the sense that acknowledging it, that this is the current state I'm in, with the awareness that that is not it. So, and also, especially when we are in the lower phases, to really be very, very sincere that, am I really enjoying being upset? Am I really enjoying being in the space of suffering? I mean, it doesn't sound good when we talk about these things, but our sense of identity or our needs, there's so much of hidden things in us that we have not even learned that art of being transparent with our own self, because of our own conditioning, because of our own idea of who we are, because we really hold ourselves high. And to really deconstruct our surface first at our own, in our own safe space, and then really picking those parts and really offering to the higher. So deconstruction of the surface really helps us to minutely observe that what are the insecurities, what are the impurities, what is the lowest in me. Because if I know what is the lowest in me and if I know the highest in me, that is when I can create the balance that can help me execute in the world. So if I'm only striving for what I want to know the highest, I want to know the highest, I want to know the highest. I mean, of course, that's a wave you always look up. But like the knowing the highest may be the first step, but for letting that highest to work through your lowest is the transformation which we are looking for. Like even if we look for, say, from the integral perspective, when you're talking about, like, even from a distance, when we're talking about ascent and descent in that sense, we are saying that, yes, we want to go higher, and then we have to come back for the transformation. So at a human level also, it is like, I want to know what is the best capacity in me so that I can work on what is the lowest in me and not reject it or not brush it. No, that is not what it is. So how do I maintain that balance? So there's an outer high and low, which is the fluctuation more towards the world because of the world. And there's an inner high and low, which is more rooted instability which is more rooted in the ability to solve problems and which is a much more wider spectrum. So it looks the same, but because there's a change of intent, because there's a change of, say, will. So in the outer, there is more of falsity of will, but in the inner, there is more of purification of the will. So when we move from that falsity of will to the purification of will, that is when we are able to stabilize all these things. And all these stabilities really come from that ability to really see that I'm really not at the mercy of my surface nature. Like another way we can say no, especially when we talk about moods. And even in psychology, we have so many theories of moods, emotions, their fluctuation. And we often give it that name of, say, there are certain chemicals in my body. If they're going high, I feel high, they're going low. So I'm really into that surface. So, of course, there's a certain truth to the physiology of human beings. But more than the physiology of human beings, we have a capacity of dealing with the psychology of human beings. Because psychology can help us, if not remove the takings of the physiology, but able to manage it, able to experience it in from a better space. So it's really like we can speak in that sense because we're talking about the physiology. Like, how can we move from, say, chemical to consciousness? Like the chemicals in my body can be dealt with the consciousness of my being in a much better manner than being fully giving to, okay, this is what I feel and this is what my physical is going through, or this is what there's an emotional roller coaster I'm going through. So the more and more I settle myself into the conscious state of being and really giving not into the fluctuations because of fear, but bringing that stability out of love, is when I'm really walking the path of purification. So if I have that strength in my vital, that I can really say my mind can really discern. If my vital needs to engage in an impulse, it can control. So that is a strength I hold. But there is a impurity in my vital that it doesn't know how to express or articulate a certain desire because it has always said that, oh, it doesn't exist. So my inability to see a desire is a result of my too much identification with discernment with the mind. That, oh, I'm a mental being. There's not these petty desires don't exist in me. But as I walk the path, I realize that it is not you and me. It is a nature of humanity. So as a human being, I have those. So then I use my strength, which I attained through the discernment. So the discernment of mind helped me go higher. But going higher, then I have to deal with those desires which are hidden. And that is when actual purification will take place. If I continue to identify with the mental will and mental discernment as my identity and negate the tiny aspects of vital being, so what I'm doing is at first I'm not recognizing them, I'm not balancing them, and my transformation is not complete, my purification is not complete. So the more of course, so that's what working on your strength and becoming aware of your weakness is a simultaneous process. But how am I using my awareness in uplifting my weakness without categorizing it and without generalizing it, without belittling it, and taking it as a part of the process, as a part of the nature? So this is what helps us in really not giving into the low in that sense of, like, this is an example I give you of the mind and the vital. For other person, it can be reverse. That if I really have that life energy, if I'm really that vibrant person who can get things done, but I'm not so much of a thinker. But because my conditioning tells me that, oh, you have to be intellectual or you have to have great thoughts if you really want to walk the path, or you have to understand all the philosophies well. So I'm really not respecting my nature because of certain conditioning. So then how do I learn to focus on that what is the gift which I have? With that gift, how can I also work on other parts? Because of course, we can't leave any part unattended. but which part of my being is helping me to cater to another part of my being. And as, remember, I told you the I where I identify with is able to hold that place for me. So within my psychological framework, is there a space where, say, all these parts come together and collaborate, the weak, the powerful, the good, the bad, all of these things come together. So is there an objective place within my own being where everybody can hang out without, say, wanting to hide from each other, or without wanting to assert in each other that, oh, when my mind is coming inside, then vital is hiding. No, no, my mind will overpower. So my vital is okay, okay, I don't have anything. So the vital will immediately surrender. But will that take away the life force within? Will it then lead me to an action? Or if my vital is really powerful and it comes, like, if you can really just imagine that play field within yourself. So am I capable enough? Do I have enough strength to hold that space where, without any categorization, without any remarks in that sense, all the parts can come together? It's only when I can create a space of harmony for all my parts. And interesting enough, why, how, and this yoga becomes an enjoyable process, because every now and then you will discover a new part because you're progressing. And you'll be like, okay, today, every time you have to make a new playmate, and then you have to try and understand that. And then, so there is no ganging allowed. Like usually in playgrounds, when you take your children, or as a child, you also have to go. So you see groups. Like for swings, there's a group, for playing, there's a group. So it's the play group in that sense. Like we say, no, that life is a playground. So the strength of that playground lies in the inner stability that you offer. And every child, in that sense, every part of the being that is coming with the surety that I'll be addressed. And everybody, it will be a collaborative effort. Like even for integral yoga, we talk about, no, it's a collective yoga. But what you're attempting in a collective is to give place for individual. And to give place to individual, you have to acknowledge the individual for who they are and use their strength for collective growth, and use the collective strength to address their individual weakness. And that is how as a society also we grow. So the principle essentially remains the same. Society learns from individual, individual runs from society, essentially the processes that work underneath. So if the same process I follow within my system, then I know that I have the ability, that my strength is helping my weakness. And that is how I not only grow in that sense, but I'm also able to experience all the ups and downs, because ups and downs, as we spoke about, is part of the process. It helps us, it brings in like that richness in experience, so to speak. It's really like when we talk about introspection witness, usually the one example which all of us give is about watching a movie. Like you look at your life as you're watching the movie and all of those things. But if we really want to take this example a little further, there is one thing of going to the movie theater and watching movie and enjoying, which you can do, say, once a week or twice a week. But there's another expansion of who you are, or enjoyment comes when you sit at home. So there's an inner home and there's an outer drama, which is the movie. So how much are you wanting to engage with the outer drama while being a part of the drama? Or how much are you wanting or willing to sit at home in your inner presence and experience the drama? You are in the comfort of your home. You're also experiencing the drama. You also have full liberty of commenting on that. Oh, this character should have done that. That character should have done that. But here you also have the agency to hold space for them, because it's happening inside of you. So when I said desire, distance, and divine, so that divinity within you, from a distance, in watching the desire play out and giving its playtime. So it's like how we have 1 hour of play, 2 hours of study, all of those scheduling which we do for ourselves, or when we are young, or we do it for the family members. So the same kind of management, like say planning for our own being, that every part of my being is catered and nurtured on a day-to-day basis. So if nothing is left out, it will not lead to those extremes. It's like if I have really not eaten for 1 week and then I have eaten, my way of approaching the food will be very different. But if I'm really balanced, it's like giving your being a balanced diet. So when I have that balanced diet, so it's like at a physical level also, like we were talking about the chemical level. If at the physical level also I give myself that space where my vitals, my stats are normal. So there's no fluctuation in my blood pressure or my heart rate or whatever because I'm fine. But there's fluctuation because there's some sort of misalignment. So like at the physical level, there's misalignment. At a vital level or at the inner subtle levels, there's misalignment. So how do I cater to those misalignments? By becoming aware of the strength in me and the ability of my strength to be able to hold the weakness. And just because we're using language, I'm talking about strength and weakness, but essentially it is a subtler way of something which has a fuller quality in me and something which is still work in progress in me. So we also have to go beyond strength and weakness and associate more with a sense of quality, that what in me, okay, let me just finish it by saying that what in me takes me closer to the divine, what in me takes me away from the divine, what in me feels more open to the positive divine forces, what in me feels much more at a quality level opening to hostile forces or forces that really pull me down. So what in me brings me more to my surface, what in me helps me easily connect to the divine. So when I'm able to create that framework for myself, then I can know when to use what, because I'm more and more aware. So really giving your psychological subjective framework a form so that whenever whatever is required for your progress can be picked up from that form and used for essentially grounding yourself at one level and helping that grounding to move beyond. So this is the idea of, or rather the experience of purification. When you move from idea to action, when you move from knowledge to practice, but the responsibility or the ingredients of that movement are not so much outside of you, but are inside of you. So this relationship, when you form between, say, the intention and action, the form and essence, that is where all these, then there's no distinction in that sense between mental will, vital will, physical will. More and more, it is about outer will aligning with the inner will to result into a stability which is beyond the fluctuations. I think, yeah, that level of awareness can work. And yeah, I'll close otherwise. Okay, yeah. I think that is what I would like to share. And we can see if anybody wants to add to these things. And yeah, thank you.
Yes, a very interesting self-inquiry, Aditi. Thank you. So, does anyone have any questions or comments to make, or want to share anything? What do you say, Abhijit?
Yeah, I would say it's so illuminating. It's there's a lot of things which Aditi said is to be contemplated. Many of the things, yeah, like it's very true. Like I made some notes of it. I think I have to think about it. Really, it makes sense. Like to discover and experience the discomforts which comes from different parts of the being, and perhaps we have a tendency to really avoid that and to settle with the strength that we have, but that really deprives that part of the being which also needs expression. Like you said, it has to be integral, a kind of a movement. Only then we can deliver. That's brilliant, really. In fact, I think personally I need to work, just to give an example, like, whenever, like, if there is some praise or maybe some kind words from someone, or in the same process, if I like to praise or appreciate someone, so which, the, the afterthought is that whether it's necessary, whether it's really helping me or the other person. So now I think what's important is the nature of the individual person, of the individual being, and what is really working for him or her. The tendency is to be really to know that, and then to concentrate on the whys, why it's happening, and then maybe because everyone's soul of the psychic, is aspiring for different things. So it may not be the same thing that we are aspiring for. So I mean that has to be really recognized and appreciated, and not try to compare or compete with anyone, because everyone is so unique, and we need to know, because there's no escape from it really. We need to know what really helps, what really we need to work upon. Yeah. Just some thoughts, maybe, I have to work upon them. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhijit.
It's brilliant. It's very
Yeah.
illuminating. Aditi, thank you very much. Gratitude. Every time I join your session, it's always really uplifting. Thanks a lot.
And this constant aspiration to constantly refer back to your inner space is a recurrent theme of your sessions, Aditi. It's very, very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, okay, we'll just wait if anybody else has to share something, or
Yes. Yes,
I will
please.
just speak something. Okay, yeah.
Can I ask a
Thank you,
question?
Aditi.
Sumiti.
Right. Aditi, my perception is, I'm starting with the word perception because that's what I want to ask you about here. Like desire could be perceived as the basis of life, or it could also be perceived as something which keeps you entangled with the surface. Same distance could be perceived as something that there is no distance actually when we talk about the divine, because it's already here. And when we look at it as a process which has to be done to arrive, it could be something which you have to go through. So how does the perception make a difference? And how do you purify that so that it helps you reach your goal? Have I been clear with my question?
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're offering. So how I see, when you said perception, and then I'm saying how I see, but what immediately came to me was it depends on if I'm perceiving through the inner eye or the outer eye. It's also like we say, no, that whatever glass we wear, the world looks like that if I'm wearing a blue glass or a green glass or whatever. So the idea is that my experience is coming from how I'm perceiving. So that's the first thing. Then your question is, how do we perceive? So if I am more by nature outward oriented, so my quality of experience is outward. But if by nature I'm inward oriented, my experience will be inward. And so I can start from wherever I am. So we are not even saying inner is better than outer. We are saying wherever I am. But if I'm outward oriented and I'm engaging with the world from there and I have no question about it, that's my life. Everybody don't need to question it. We are not here to prove that, no, please don't be out, be inside. It's only when while being out, I feel a sense of wanting to go in, but I don't know how, then my seeking begins. But there's so many people around us who are out who are perceiving the world like you are saying that desire is the base, that is what needs to be fulfilled, and that's how it is. So that's their way. It's only when you feel a misalignment in your perception and your experience, your quest begins. But till the time there is no misalignment, you're fine. I mean, you can't impose a misalignment. It has to come from within. And even people who walk the path because their misalignment comes from conditioning, that is where, like, that's not a point of discussion here, but it's just that if I'm taught that there's a misalignment, that is the sects which form, no, like, of course, we're not talking about these, like, for example,
Right.
in a broader way, religion. It forms because the conditioning is that there's misalignment. But spirituality is the misalignment of experience, in experience, and religion is misalignment in idea. So, like, that can be one example of answering. So, whichever perception feels closer to my experience, I begin with that. So, I think in short, that can be a sharing.
That means subjective to each individual.
To begin with, yes. It's only I start with the individual subjectivity that merges with the universal subjectivity. But the starting point is always individual, no? Because it starts from effort at an individual level, and then certain like paths open for us, experience comes in. That's a different individual journey. But is there something in me which wants that? So let's take the example desire only. You spoke about desire. So do I have a desire to understand desire, or do I want to have a desire to fulfill the desire? Even I have desire, you have desire. If I'm walking the path of yoga, I'm like, why do I have this desire? Like, how can I purify it? So I'm also dealing with desire. But somebody else can deal with desire. Oh, this is my desire. What are the ways to fulfill it? So we are dealing with the same thing. So it's like we always speak about, no, it's not about the what of life, it's the how of life, which makes the difference. So that's where we are. Yeah.
But if we look at the reality and in general, both coexist, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like that, no? Like if I'm living in this house, but the room I'm sitting is in this house. So the house also exists, the room also exists. But in my perception, is my perception limited to the room, or is my perception wide enough to incorporate the house as well? So that is what universal and individual and desire and divine, anything can come into that. Like it's just an explanation. But it's like where we begin from and why. What will take its own course? I mean, we don't worry about it.
What can one do about that perception to enhance that expansion?
To just able to want it.
I didn't get you.
If you want to enhance it, the ways will unfold. But if there is some sort of secret inhibition, like we didn't speak about so much of resistance today, but the question, if we ask somebody else, the question of how, essentially that's the resistance in us, which is not wanting to know the how of your own self. Like it's a universal process of anything. Like if I come to you saying, how can it be done? That how is more coming from, so there are two ways. There's aspiration which wants to know, and there's a resistance which doesn't want to know. So the moment you ask that question, you will be aware it's coming from aspiration or resistance. So that is why human interaction is very important. So for example, you and I are interacting for the last 3-4 minutes. It's not about what we're interacting about, what I'm saying, what you are saying. But inside of you, there's a voice which is at certain level agreeing, disagreeing. So there's something inner which is happening because of this outer conversation. And that is the inner that will help to purify or widen the perception, not the conversation. That is why we keep saying that keeping the inner eye active is so important. So like right now, when both of us pause, so there will be inner narrative which will come up, and that will lead you to the answer what you're looking for. So that can, in fact, right now you can do it as an exercise for your own self. Of course, you don't have to share with the world. Like after our discussion, the inner voice, the direction that gives you will tell you the expansion plan.
So that means I just have to be present and it will unfold. That's what you're saying?
Like right now, that need to understand,
Mhm.
the moment you pause the need to understand, the expansion will happen. Yes. You can see, Jill, right now, we'll just pause now and you will see what happens inside of you for the next 10-15 minutes. And if you're just being present to that process, you will know.
Okay. Thanks.
If there are no more sharings, can we just take 2-3 minutes to just do a quick silent like not silent, a guided meditation? I just wanted to just go within with the group, if that's okay, James.
That would be fine. Yeah, absolutely. Good
Okay.
idea.
Okay, all right. Okay, why am I muting? Yeah, sorry. Okay. So what I'll request all of you is to just close your eyes. Bring your awareness to your breath. Not focusing so much to alter it, but just observing the movement of your breath. Because that really helps us to connect, to bring our awareness. And we really try to go deeper and see wherever it is taking us. Like there's a certain sense of presence. The moment we close our eyes, what is that first place that we go within? Did you immediately go to your mind to start recreating, recalling what has been done in the session? Or you immediately went to your emotional space to just check how are you feeling right now? What has all that discussion that has happened, what is the experience it has left you with? Or your attention immediately went to the physical state of your being, that are you comfortable sitting? Do you want to move, or is it done? Let's move on. What was that first natural space you went to? And just be in that space. Don't try to move so much. Whatever part of your being you are, just stay in that part of your being. And just take a look. What is the quality of that part at this point of time? Is there a sense of silence, or there's a lot of surface noise there? If there's noise, we just call upon the silence in that part. And in that silence, we attempt to connect with the strength of that part. Bring in more and more light. And in that light, we try to see that part, that what is my quest? What do I want to know? What do I want to do? What do I want to feel? Staying with it without wanting to change anything, and widening my awareness more and more, and experiencing the quality of light that I've just called in that part of my being. And becoming one with that light, experiencing the quality of that light. And as I feel at peace, connected with that light, can I take that light and move to the other parts and become aware that when I travel through the different parts of my being, carrying that light, or rather carried by that light, Am I able to experience the strength I hold, the stability I hold, the infinite possibilities of expression that my being holds? And just staying in that space of silence, of light, of calmness, of certitude, of strength, and navigating through the entire system and purifying my entire being through that light. So, whichever part of my being I am at, I slowly move to the head region with that light. If I'm already there, I just stay. And slowly visualizing that light, which has the quality of strength, calmness, certitude, eliminating my mind and giving it that sense of surety that it has what takes to work on ourselves and to continue on the path. And from that mind, we just slowly come to our heart region, giving all that light to my heart and connecting it to my mind. So when I move from my mind to my heart, I make a passage of light. I connect them. And I carry the same light from my vital to my physical being and experience that entire light engulfing my paths and just staying in its presence, giving myself that message that there's an inner presence in me that calls that light, that works in its guidance, and I'm always taken care, and I'm an integral seeker. I want to bring and collaborate all my paths and offer to the highest light in me. We make that resolve, be with it, slowly bring our attention back to our breath. Staying connected with the light, connected with the breath. Whenever we feel ready, we open our eyes and close in silence.
Yes, thank you very much. And until tomorrow, everyone. That was a beautiful way to close, Aditi. Thank you. And see you all tomorrow for the last session. Bye.